Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on a Sunday. Whether you're a parent, a student, or both, we're so thankful that you're here. Today, we're going to focus on how to make the most of your high school career, not just get into college, but how to grow into the kind of student and leader colleges are genuinely excited to admit. You're here because you care about making the most of the high school years and really setting the stage for college success. We all know that the college admissions process can be very overwhelming. There's a lot of information out there. Some of it's confusing and even misleading. So today, we're going to clear up some of that and really focus on what matters just beyond GPA and test scores. On today's agenda, you'll learn what colleges look for, how students can stand out, and practical ways to plan each school year. Our goal is to give you clear guidance that will help you feel confident and prepared as we move forward. So let's dive in and take a closer look. For those of you that are brand new to Class 101, what we do is college planning. And how we do it, we make college planning simple. Our mission is to help students so they can find the best fit schools, increase test scores, and become a competitive applicant, and leverage as many scholarship opportunities as possible to ultimately make college affordable for your family. And this is what we are all about. So thank you again for joining us. My name is Jamie Clark. I'm the brand president for Class 101, and I am excited to introduce our speakers today, Miss Rosa and Miss Rhonda. Rosa is our owner of Class 101 in Michigan, and Rhonda is our multi-unit owner in Class 101, Irving, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, and San Francisco. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Rhonda to get us started.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you all for joining today. We are so excited to be here. I hope you guys are ready. Please have your pencil and paper or your Google Docs open because we are going to be giving out a lot of information. So please make sure that you're taking notes. Okay. Take notes. Awesome.
One second, Rhonda, I forgot to mention, if you have questions, look at the bottom of your screen. There'll be a Q&A button. Just click on that button and type your questions in there, and we'll get to them throughout the presentation as well as at the end. Go ahead,
Awesome.
Rhonda.
Thank you, Jamie. And like Jamie said, my name is Rhonda, and I am happy to be here. So let's go ahead and get started. Colleges admit people, not numbers. So I'll repeat. Colleges admit people, not numbers. So let's pause for a second, okay? It's easy to assume that college admission is just about checking off a box, right? So whether that be GPA, test scores, list of clubs, but what colleges are really looking for is a whole person, okay? So there's many things that they want to know, right? But some of those top things are who is the student? What do they care about? What's their passion? How do they spend their time? And how will they contribute to that specific university's campus? So, how are they going to be an asset? That's why the high school journey matters. It's so important, guys. The earlier you start, the better. It's not just a means to a GPA, it's time to build your identity, to develop confidence, and explore interests. What colleges actually look for. Okay, so there's 5 things that I'm going to cover today. So like I said, again, make sure you have your notes ready. Number 1, academic rigor and GPA. So of course we know that GPA still matters. It's still important. That transcript is still important. So make sure that if you don't already, you have a copy of your transcript and you're talking with your counselor constantly about that. But it's not just about having straight A's. Admissions teams will ask, did this student take challenging classes? Did they challenge themselves within the context of their school? Okay, so that means taking honors. We know that there's AP, IB, dual enrollment, but it also means avoiding senioritis your senior year too, right? So if we have any seniors on the call, all of your grades matter because at the end, whatever school you attend, they want to see that final transcript. So no senioritis here, okay? A being a rigorous course often holds more weight than an easy A that's not as challenging, okay? So students, make sure that you challenge yourself. They're looking at trends, they're looking at upward trajectory can be powerful as well, especially if you started a year that might have been slow. So maybe that ninth grade year might have not been your best. We want to make sure that we're constantly seeing progress, right? So those grades matter, and your GPA matters as well. Next, test scores, if submitted. So, with many schools that are test optional, students, you guys have a little bit more control. But on the same token, there are schools that are going back to test required. So that's important to know too, right? So it's still important to study and prepare for that SAT or ACT. If a student's score is going to strengthen their application, it should be submitted, right? If not, it doesn't have to if the school offers a test optional choice, okay? But make no mistake, strong test scores can still be a differentiator. So if you're a student that scored really well on the SAT or ACT, if your school is test optional, don't say, well, I'm not submitting my score because it's test optional. If you did really well and that test score falls in line of the school profile, please make sure that you submit it because it will differentiate you. And then you can also qualify for competitive merit-based scholarships as well as those selective programs, okay? Students should take a practice test early and plan to test at least 2 to 3 times. So my students in all of my locations, they know we need you to take the test at least 2 to 3 times, right? Before you start submitting your application. Many colleges will do what's called super score. So if you've taken the test 3 times, they're going to take your highest reading writing score, they're going to take your highest math score and give you that super score. Okay. So it's really important to not just take the test multiple times, but to prepare. So, studying, what does that look like for you? Are you in test prep? We offer test prep within Class 101. So, all of our students are doing test prep, and they're test prepping in between each time that they're taking the test. Number three, activities and leadership. I love this one. Uh, this is where students are able to show who they are outside of the classroom, right? Colleges want to know you're more than just a GPA and test score. They're wanting to see what you're doing outside of the classroom. So it's not just about joining every club. We don't want to see all of that you're in every single club that they offer at the school, but it's also about showing your impact and showing your commitment. So admission officers will ask, hey, is this student likely to contribute to our campus or university? If a student's applying and only has a great GPA and test scores and not involved in anything, that admission officer may say, I don't think so because they weren't involved in their high school. So are they going to be involved in college? So really kind of think about that. Leadership doesn't require a specific title, right? So you can start a club. I have many students in our program that have started a club, started a nonprofit, organized an event, mentored their peers, started a business. So there's so many things that you can do that can fall under the umbrella of leadership. Here's a pro tip. Pro tip, write this down. Write this down. Students should keep a brag sheet. Okay. So keep a brag sheet throughout high school. This will help you as you're writing your resume. Also, with your brag sheet, you can give that to your teacher that's requiring a letter. Well, if you're wanting a letter of recommendation, you can ask them and you can also email them your brag sheet. That way they can have more information so they can make your letter of recommendation that much more powerful. Number four is community involvement. So, with community involvement, this is your community service, right? Engaging your community. This shows maturity, this shows empathy, and it also shows initiative. It could be volunteering, activism, service projects, or even helping your neighbor out, okay? Colleges want students who understand their role and something bigger than just themselves. So, how are you leading your school and your community? How are you making an impact? Okay. What does that look like? We really want to be intentional. I love that word because we want to be intentional in everything that we do. So, we encourage students to reflect, how have I made someone's life better? Right. So, meaningful activities can become the foundation of maybe your essay or even a recommendation. So community service is important. Number five, personal character. So we'll talk about essays and recommendations. So this is where students become real people to the admission officers, right? They're looking at your GPA, they're looking at your test scores, they're looking at your activities and letters of recommendation. That essay is so important, especially that main essay. Okay. That essay that's going to show your voice. That's going to help the schools understand your perspective, what are your values, and what motivates you. So that essay and those supplemental essays are important. Recommendation letters are important too. Not every school requires them, but you still want to have them because there will be some schools on your list that will require a core teacher letter of recommendation as well as an other recommendation. So that can be from a community leader, a mentor, but you definitely want to have a strong letter of recommendation where they're able to talk about your integrity, they're able to talk about your character, your work ethic, how you were in class, and your growth. So students, when you are requesting letters of recommendation, don't ask a teacher that barely knows you or you barely know them, right? These should be teachers or your mentors that really know you and you really know them as well. That way they can write a powerful recommendation. Some colleges also offer interviews, which give students a chance to share their story in their own words. So if you are going to be doing an interview, just make sure that you're ready and prepared for that. GPA and course rigor. Tips for choosing classes. So this is important as well. And we talk about this with our students all the time. When we talk about GPA, we really can't separate it from course rigor, right? The challenging courses that you'll be taking. The two go hand in hand, it goes together. So a perfect GPA in one of the easiest classes available doesn't carry the same weight as a slightly lower GPA in a more challenging classes such as honors, AP, dual enrollment, or IB program. Colleges want to see that you're pushing yourself, right? They're wanting to see that you're taking challenging courses, that you've chosen classes that's going to stretch your skills and prepare you when you go off to college. So that's what we mean by course rigor. For many competitive schools, that rigor is actually more important than the GPA alone because it's going to tell them about your work ethic and your willingness to take challenging courses. So I had a student, he wanted to go to school for engineering and he was thinking, should I take this stats class? But when he looked at a possible 4-year plan, when we looked at that for college, he said, you know what, maybe instead of stats, I really need to push myself and consider taking AP calculus to prepare me for engineering. And he's a second year in college and I talked to him recently and he's like, thank you so much for pushing me to take that class because it really prepared me as an engineering student. So students, as you are picking your classes, be intentional. Really talk about this with your counselor, especially if you know what you're wanting to major in. So if you're wanting to major in something in STEM, what are those challenging classes you should be taking now to prepare? Beyond the classroom. I love this one. Activities that count. Students beyond the classroom. Let's talk about activities that count. So colleges aren't just looking for strong students in the classroom. That's still important, right? We know that. But they want people who are going to bring life and energy to their campus. They want students to be an asset to their campus. They want students who are going to contribute, whether that's through leadership, creativity, teamwork, or service, right? So strong involvement can take many forms. This could be clubs, sports, music, theater. It could also be you working a part-time job, taking care of your siblings, helping out in a family business. It can also mean involvement in a faith-based group. It could even be starting your own business. We have a lot of students in our organization that have their own business. And I was like, man, what was I doing in high school? Like, our students are doing a lot. And I know a lot of students on this call are doing a lot as well. It can also mean running maybe your own podcast or YouTube channel. I had a student, she's off to college now, but she was one of our scholarship winners. And she was really intentional on picking, what do I want to do? What am I passionate about? So she was a basketball player. She loves working with students. So she created a summer camp. It's called All Gas, stands for Grow, Affirm, Shoot. So she brings in elementary students from the community. She teaches them those basketball skills. So she's there as well as everyone from her basketball basketball team. They're helping out with these elementary students. At the end, they do a lesson on affirming one another, and she's teaching students just how to build self-esteem. And then at the end, they all left with backpacks full of school supplies. So they are set up for the school year. So that is a community service or a purpose-driven initiative that's very intentional, right? It aligned with her passion, it aligned to what she wanted to do, and it also aligned to what was missing in her community, right? And she was able to do that. So a lot of colleges, they like to see that. How are you making an impact in your community? And how are you showing those leadership skills? So that's just one example. The important thing is that it's not just joining every club though, right? So we have students that are like, should I join everything? It doesn't mean that you have to join every club that's on your school list, but colleges want depth of things that you're joining, right? As well as community service initiatives like the one that I just mentioned. They want to see commitment, they want to see growth, right, over time, and they want to see impact. So if you've been deeply involved in one or two things that you truly care about, that can be more powerful than you just being in 10 different clubs that you're changing from year to year. Quality versus quantity myth, right? I need to do everything. I need to be in every club. I need to be in every sport. I need to have a million hours of community service, right? So colleges are really looking at the quality versus the quantity. So remember that, guys, right? Quality versus quantity. So they're really liking to see the quality of the things that you're in. A lot of students think, I have to join every club, but it's not true. Colleges would rather see that commitment and a few things that you genuinely care about and that you're sticking with instead of you joining multiple clubs that I said. So here's a question for you to think about. If you were an admission officer, would you be more impressed by a student who is involved in 10 different teams but barely involved in any, or by a student who led the debate team for 2 years, went up in leadership, helped organize tournaments, and even mentor schoolers in debate? Which one, A or B? Right? So think quality over quantity. Admission officers can tell when you're just collecting activities just to put on your application versus when you're really building meaningful experiences, right? Another thing that I want you to remember, and I call this like a little nugget. So we're dropping a gem here. Colleges want to see more than grades or test scores. They want evidence. So colleges want evidence that what you say you want to study, as far as like your major, connects with what you do outside of the classroom. So the more activities that align to your intended major, the more convincing that shows on your application. So I'll give you an example. If a student says, I'll use my student from earlier who is interested in engineering and who's majoring in engineering now. So if you put engineering as your major, some of examples that you can put on evidence as far as intentionality can be joining a robotics club, right? And a leader of the robotics STEM club. You've competed in math, coding, engineering competitions. You might have shadowed an engineer or even interned at a company. Also, you might have been involved in a STEM or engineering pre-college program at one of your top universities. And taking advanced classes, right? So we talked about that AP calculus class. So those are evidence, right? That shows that this student not only wants to major in engineering, but look at all the evidence that student has completed throughout their 4 years in high school. Types of involvement. So we talked about community service, right? But there's different types. So we have national level, regional level, and school level, and community. So when we talk about involvement, it helps to think about the scope of activities, right? The scope of activities and where you're making that impact. Don't think about involvement as far as it limited to just to your school or to your local area, right? There are opportunities to get involved in many levels. I just had a student who created a nonprofit and she just got back from Africa. She was able to teach 500 students about engineering in STEM, right? So really think big, students, of how far you want to take your activities and your impact. Some activities happen to be at the national level, right? So this could be being a part of national organizations. So an example can be your National Honor Society, competing in national tournaments, volunteering or charity that operates across the country or outside of the country, like the student that I just told you about. There's also regional involvement. So this might mean taking parts of events or competitions that can be at the state level or beyond. So maybe helping an organization or a regional science fair. All right. And then the last level, of course, is school and community involvement. So this means joining clubs, sports, volunteer groups, local organizations, right? So what matters most is not just where you're involved, but how you're contributing and how you're growing in these roles. Awesome. Well, Rosa, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. What a perfect segue. Hello, everyone. My name is Rosa Bosman, and I'm calling in from Class 101 here in South Oakland, Michigan. Hello to all my Michigan folks I saw dropping in the chat where they're from. I wanted to dive deeper and pick up where, Rhonda just finished off with the level of involvement. One of the way to maximize that is during summer opportunities. And during the school year, there's a lot going on for students. You have classes, homework, activities, everything else that fills up a student's schedules. And that's why summer is truly a valuable time for everyone. It gives you, the students, a chance to really take a step back, reflect not just what you accomplished in that academic year, but how do you want to maximize your summer, explore your interests, and really focus on the things that make your college application stand out. Colleges love to see students who spend their summer productively. Like I said, productively, because you have about 6 to 8 weeks of summertime to truly maximize those opportunities. So take advantage of that, using that time to learn, grow, and explore. Some attend summer programs that focus on academics, leadership, or special interests. Other use the time to visit colleges and get a feel for different campus environments. And if I can drop another nugget, as Rhonda said, college admissions really do look for intent and demonstrated interest. They like to see that students took the time to visit their campus, explore opportunities, and connect with students and the environment. Internships and jobs offer real-world experience and show responsibility. Volunteering can make a positive difference in the community. So you see, summer is a great opportunity to create something meaningful in the ways that we just discussed above. Maybe you could even start a personal project, launch a blog, or even build a small business. One of my students is very passionate for entrepreneurship. She's a rising senior and wants to study business administration. But not only that, she is passionate about traveling, giving back to the community, and really connecting with teens her age from different cultures. So how did she maximize her summer? She attended a summer business program in the Netherlands. It was a short 3-week program, but it was such an incredible and impactful experience to her. So when I asked her how you want to maximize, it wasn't just about joining any summer program and where. She aligned the program with her personal and academic interests, and she had a great time. And now let's talk about leadership and initiative. You see here, when we talk about those things, it's important to understand it's not just about having that title or a position. Leadership is really about taking ownership and making a difference. Let that resonate and sink in for a moment. How do you want to make a difference throughout your high school journey as you prepare for your college applications? Colleges want to see students who step up, take responsibility, drive projects or teams forward. It could be leading a club, or even starting a nonprofit, organizing an event like Rhonda mentioned, starting a new initiative, or even solving a problem in your local and immediate community. What matters most is the impact you make and how you show that you can lead others, follow through on commitments, and make things happen. And so leadership isn't just about that title. So one of my students, I love sharing the story. He's a rising junior now and is extremely passionate about sustainability and environmental initiatives. He didn't believe that joining a club on a school level would be the right fit for him specifically. He wanted to impact his community on a larger scale. So he started a composting initiative in his neighborhood with a few neighbors supporting him. And by the following summer, his impact spread throughout the entire neighborhood and community. What a great, tremendous impact and story he can tell, not only on his resume, but also on his entire college application. It takes time. So ask yourself, how do you want to impact the community, and how do you want to be a leader? And now, when we talk about community involvement, it's important to understand that not all volunteering looks the same. There's a big difference between putting in hours just to check off an item off of a list and making that real impact. Colleges want to see students who get involved with purpose. This could mean, again, starting that club, leading a fundraiser, or even creating a website that supports a cause. These kinds of actions show initiative and leadership, not just participation. So ask yourself, if I want to volunteer, what organizations would align with my interests and passions? Who do I want to serve in my community? Volunteering with a clear goal to solve a real problem makes your involvement stand out. It shows that you care about making that difference and that you have the drive to turn ideas into action. And to students and families joining us today, think about all the ways you want to contribute that goes beyond showing up. How can students use their skills and passions to make impact real in their community? This is a lot that we just unpacked for all of you folks. So let's take a step back, take a deep breath, everybody, and let's talk about how you can maximize your high school journey by year-to-year planning. Plan ahead. And planning your high school years with college in mind can really take pressure off of you, your parents, your community, and just help you stay on track. In ninth grade, it's all about exploring and trying new things. This is the time to discover what your interests are, join different clubs or sports, and get a feel for what you enjoy. It's okay to experiment and see what fits. By 10th grade, it's time to really start focusing. Pick a few of those activities you joined during freshman year and ninth grade and begin building that consistency. This is when colleges start noticing patterns. So showing steady involvement truly matters this year. By 11th grade, you have so much going on with campus visits, standardized testing, and a lot of other things. This is the time where you want to really deepen your involvement and take on leadership roles and really prepare for applications. This means seeking out chances to lead, push yourself academically, start to think about where you want to apply and build the college list that's the right fit for you. Finally, to my senior students, hang in there. It's all about telling your story. As you build your college application, your essays, applications, recommendations, and how you share your experiences and who you are beyond the grades and the scores really matters. This is your chance to show what makes you unique and why you belong at that college. So my advice to you, find your authentic voice. And each year builds on the last. So starting early and staying thoughtful about your choices can really make a big difference. And parents, we can't do any of this without you. As college advisors, we love to support our parents, and you play a huge role in helping your students navigate the college planning journey. It's important to know how to support in the best way. One of the most valuable things that you can do is be a sounding board, someone your student can talk about their ideas, worries, and plans. Listen and ask questions, but try not to become their schedule or task manager. Let them take ownership of their journey. Encourage your student to take risks and accept responsibility. Trying new things or stepping outside their comfort zone can be scary, but it's also where growth truly happens. Celebrate the efforts, even if things don't turn out perfectly. It's a learning experience at the end of the day. Focus on progress, not perfection. It's quality over quantity. Every small step forward is worth recognizing. That positive reinforcement can truly keep your students motivated and confident as they move through high school and the college process. Your support means the world, and being there in these ways really helps your student build independence, resilience, so they can own their college planning journey. And now let's talk about who we are. Class 101, you're registering for this webinar, amazing event. How can Class 101 help? We're here to guide families every step of the way through the college planning process. We understand that this journey can feel overwhelming, and our goal is to make it manageable, exciting, engaging for our students. We provide personalized college planning that fits each student's unique goals, interests, and strengths. I'm going to repeat that. We provide personalized college planning that fits each student's goals, interests, and strengths. One story differs from another student's story, and this is where we guide and mentor our students. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding the right path for your student. We also help keep students on track with important deadlines, requirements, opportunities, like understanding what's the difference between early decision, early action, and regular decision, prioritizing your activities and involvement and your deadlines. We want our students to have a plan and someone to check in with that can make a big difference. That's where we really serve our students and families. So think of us as the middle ground between families and the schools. We stay up to date on all the changes and even challenges in college admissions, financial aid, testing. We're here to keep students accountable and motivated so nothing slips through the cracks. Ultimately, Class 101 supports your family with expert advice, encouragement, and practical tools to help students reach their college dreams with confidence. And with that, I will pass it over to our dear Jamie.
Thanks, Rosa, and thanks, Rhonda. Everyone, thank you so much for coming again. How many of you are a little overwhelmed, kind of freaking out a little bit? Well, like Rosa said, that's where we come into play with Class 101. We really try to make the dinner table more pleasant and help guide your student and empower them to go be through this journey more intentional. So that's exactly why we're here. So if you wanted to connect with us, we have our information here. And now I'd like to open it up to questions. There are a lot of good questions came in through the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So I'm going to go ahead and ask them to our ladies here. Okay, I am in 10th grade and I want to be prepared and self-study for AP courses this year, but I'm not really sure where to start. I want ones that aren't too hard and that will also help me kind of guide towards a STEM field. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yes, I'll take that one. First, I would say make sure that you are talking with your school counselor, right? So your school counselor, they know all of the courses, right? They do the course catalog. I used to be a school counselor. So make sure that you are communicating with your counselor and letting them know, like, hey, I'm thinking about this. What are some options that we have at our school, right? Because every school's different as far as AP classes that are offered. Just some of the few that comes to top of mind. We have AP Stats, right? That's very helpful in the STEM area. We also have AP Computer Science Principles. That's broad as well as approachable. AP Environmental Science. That's the introductory course. It's more like math light science, as well as AP Psychology. I love that class, which is a little bit of lighter load, but it shows some science interest there. So those are just few that come top of mind: AP Psychology, AP Stats, AP Environmental, AP Computer Science. But you want to talk to your counselor to see what classes are actually offered at your school.
Great. Thanks, Yolanda. Okay, Rosa, I have an international question for you. Do you have to do GCSEs in order to get into European colleges?
This is school dependent. So that's why doing your research and really understanding what colleges request is very critical. Typically, no. As a US student applying to universities in Europe, there's an international process that students follow as US students. So visit the website for the colleges and understand which are the colleges in Europe that accept the SAT scores, ACT scores, and standard US high school curriculum. Hope that answers the question.
Great. Okay, Rhonda, I have a couple of ACT, SAT questions. How should I decide whether I should send in my ACT or SAT scores? Would you send both? Pick one to focus on? Does that change depending on the college? And then another one had a similar question and just recognize that I'm not very good at standardized testing and I want to make sure I have the right path forward.
Got it. Yeah, so great question because our students ask us that question all the time. So what we do, colleges will take either score as far as SAT or ACT. They're wanting your highest score. So at Class 101, we like for our students to really kind of look to see, maybe even take a practice test for each one in the beginning to see, hey, which one do I feel most comfortable with? Which one is really shows the strengths. So I may have half my students who prefer SAT and the other half ACT. So I would really figure out, hey, out of the two, which score is the highest, right? Now, if they're both equal, you can go ahead and submit them both. But if you have an SAT score that's really high, maybe 1500, and you have an ACT score that's 22, you don't want to submit both those scores, right? You're wanting to submit your highest score. And then the question about test taking, I was a horrible test taker in high school, right? So I'm dyslexic. So I was a neurodivergent student. And so we didn't have test optional back then. I wish we had it then. That would have helped me so much. But if you're a student who, hey, I may not be the best test taker, but I have a really great GPA, if there are schools that require you to or allow you to go test optional, right? Because a lot of schools who will have that option, and if you do test optional, they may do more of a holistic review where they're really looking at your activities, right? Your how you're making an impact, your recommendations. So I always say, look at the schools that you're interested in, seeing if they're test optional. If not, looking to see the school profile so you can find that. So I'll give you an example. I have locations in Texas, Georgia, and California. So if there's a school in California, what is the profile for University of Redlands, right? Their average test score is 1300, right? My test score is a 910. They're test optional. So I may want to just go test optional because my GPA really fits their school profile. So really looking at the schools.
That's great. Rosa, what would be the requirements needed for studying abroad as far as GPA, ACT, SAT? What allows a student to go forward with studying abroad?
That goes back again to university specific. The EU is very unique in its admissions process, especially for international students. And in this instance, if you are a US student, graduating from a US high school, applying to a European college, you're considered an international applicant. So typically, universities have their own criteria, just like the US universities have their own admissions criteria as far as GPA test scores, etc. The schools in Europe have the same. And so visiting the college websites, connecting with their international student support services and admissions committee will be really helpful so they can connect you with all of these resources and tools. And so typically it depends on where in the UK or in the EU you're looking at. Are you looking at UK? Are you looking at Netherlands? Like Amsterdam is one of the popular cities, and London popular cities that are more flexible with the admissions process for international students as other countries. So it's important to look at each school's criteria, and also Major is a big factor. What do you want to study at that school and what that looks like for you? So it's not just the numbers and the data of GPA test scores, it's also the academic program. Because some colleges, for example, the College of Engineering, might require specific admissions requirement rather than just the general admissions criteria. Great
Great, thank you,
question.
Rosa. Rhonda, does it hurt your application to mention your personal learning issues, IEP, or showing how you overcome them? Perhaps you talking about it in an essay. Is there a way to kind of showcase that in your application without it hurting you?
Yes, no, that's a great question. And I've had students that showcase that. In the Common App application, under your main essay, there is some questions right underneath, right? Like, so if you had any challenges that you would like admission officers to know, right? So maybe ninth grade year, your accommodations didn't kick in, right? But maybe 10th grade year it did, and those accommodations helped, and your grades improved. And you may want to talk about that. You can mention that in the additional information. Because if not, colleges may see, okay, what happened here? Or, they had a very low GPA ninth grade year and it went up. Like, what happened, right? So that additional information in the Common App, that's a great way where you can talk about that. That way, when they are reading your application, they can get the whole picture, right? So, okay, now we see why there was a dip, right? Or what's going on. So if you've had something where it's affected your grades at all and you want to shed light on that, the additional information is a great area where you can mention that in the Common App application.
Awesome. Okay, I love this question, Rosa. What is one mistake you see high school students commonly make that could be avoided?
Oh boy, that's a great question.
That's a loaded question.
It is a loaded
Yeah.
question. One of the things that as we go into application season, I urge students as you're building your college essay, finding the right teacher to write a letter of recommendation, ask yourself, what is your why? What's your purpose? Why are you applying to this school? Why are you asking your science teacher to be your recommender? That's probably one of the common mistakes is not choosing the right teacher to provide a letter of recommendation. And we talk about that with our students is you want to pick someone, choose a teacher who's going to be your advocate, who isn't just going to fill a short template and submit the recommendation. You want someone to speak to your leadership qualities, involvement, and if there was any change in academic performance, they can support you. They are your advocate. So lean on them because they really want to see you succeed at the end of the day. Another common thing is focusing on what others have done and the status quo as opposed to really sticking true to your inner voice, especially in the essays. Being authentic in your writing style can really help you stand out in college applications.
I have a few.
Great. Yeah, please.
Sorry.
It's a great question.
It really
Yes, no,
is.
this is good. Just a few. I've a lot that I can think about, but just a few that I want to mention. Waiting to senior year to get started. At Class 101, we have students middle school throughout high school, right? So 8th through 12th grade. And so I always tell students it's never too early to start thinking or planning for college. So your senior year, our seniors in our program, more than half of my seniors have already submitted their applications. The rest of my seniors will be done in the next few weeks. And that's because we started early preparing for college, right? Getting letters of rec, starting to write those essays junior, end of junior year. So I would say don't wait till your senior year because senior year is when you should be submitting, working on scholarships and getting ready, right? So starting early to prepare for college. So those campus visits, 9th and 10th grade, community service, those intentional extracurricular activities that I talked about. Another two more things I wanted to say, not challenging themselves. So, hey, you did amazing in math those 2 years? Why aren't you taking AP or on-ramps or dual enrollment, right? So students, make sure that you're challenging yourself, right? Because the more college level classes that you take, I see an easier transition when they go off to college because they're used to the rigor of the courses. So making sure that you're challenging yourself. And last thing is the depth of their community service and activities. A lot of times students are like, well, I have 200 hours of community service. I cleaned up the park and I worked at, or I volunteered at the homeless shelter. Nothing is wrong with that. You are volunteering, you're serving your community, and that is great. That counts as community service. But a lot of students do that. A lot of students are feeding the homeless, picking up trash, right? That doesn't really separate you. And does that align to your passion? Does that align to what's going on in your community, the areas of concern? So students really think about, what am I passionate about? What's missing at my school? What's missing in my community, right? And really be intentional on those community service. Like the student that I told you earlier that had the basketball camp, the next person can't write that same thing on their application, right? Because she created it and she did it. So, what are some things that you can create that's going to show your passion, what you're interested in, and set you apart?
So when students are researching colleges and they see what the minimum scores are, the average scores, and they start doing their research and they start getting intimidated, it sounds like the essay is going to be an opportunity for you to stand out. The community service is going to be an opportunity for you to stand out in those kinds of cases. Anything else that you would recommend for that? Rosa, how
Mm,
about you?
It goes back to asking and yourself, like reflecting why. Why do I want to be involved in this way? Because
yeah,
and you, since you mentioned essays, the very common, a lot of universities who have additional college specific essays, the supplemental questions, the common question is, why do you want to study this major? Why do you want to attend this university? So I encourage my students to really utilize their high school journey to explore their interests. Have a unique theme to your story. Connect the dots. It's great to be involved in a lot of things, but does it really align with your passions, interests, with what you want to study, and how can you show that demonstrated interest in your writing? So it all goes back to really asking yourself, why? What's my purpose, for
yeah.
pursuing this?
And with the supplementals too, because like you said, Rosa, a lot will say, why do you want to come to our school? And why do you want to major in what you put down? Don't put anything that's generic, right? Because students, college admission officers will be able to see that. So I tell students, why do you want to go? Did you take a campus visit? What were some things that really stood out? What is the mission statement of this school, right? What are some specific highlights for that particular major? You shouldn't be able to copy and paste it for another school. It should be something that's very intentional and specific to that school. So a lot of times they'll say, why do you want to come to our school? So I tell students, really do your research. Like, were there certain professors that you've read about? Did they get certain programming that's very specific to what you want to do that you want to mention? So really be specific with those questions, because college admission officers will see that, like, hey, this is really general. Do they really know about our school and what we have and what we
Beyond the first page of the website.
yeah. Mhm.
Rhonda, you had mentioned, as we all know, starting early is key with college planning journey. But what if it is your senior year and you're like, oh my gosh, here I go. What are some of the best steps a senior can take if they have kind of haven't really gone through the years of building their resume? They've been working, taking care of their family. What would be your advice for a late senior?
Yeah, so I would say make sure that they're mentioning that on their application too. Like, just say if they were busy because maybe they had a sick family member or something, they need to include that on their application. But I tell seniors, you know, it's still not too late. You still should be getting involved, right? Because a lot of times, where just say if your a school is wanting to get a mid-year report or an update, right, where you can send any additional information, you can put that in, Or if you get into a school and you want to appeal an award letter, right, you can say, well, I feel like I may deserve more in scholarships because after I submitted, I was able to start this community service initiatives that impacted 10,000 people. So I tell students, still, you're a senior, it's still not too late. Just go ahead and get those activities done. Even with test scores, there are some schools that will take your test score um, into the spring, right? So I say if you're not happy with your score, even if you submit it, right, go ahead and take it one more time because maybe you can appeal and use that higher score. And like I said, there's some schools that I just know on the top of my head that will take scores into the spring, even though after you submit it for reconsideration too. So taking that test, still getting involved, right? Don't say, oh, well, I'm a senior, I haven't done anything, I'm going to just not do it. No, still just pretend like you're in ninth grade and you're starting from, that year. So still get involved.
And if I can
Great.
add one more thing, because you're in the middle of application season now for seniors, reach out to that admissions counselor at the colleges you're interested in. Introduce yourself via email and
Yeah.
just ask a question or two. Just show your curiosity. Those little steps can take you, move you forward and go a long way. A lot of students are afraid to talk to admissions counselors, and they actually appreciate it when students reach out with questions and just inquiries, comments, concerns, anything. So reach out to admissions counselors too.
Awesome. One of you mentioned don't do senioritis, but a lot of students will approach their senior year and they have all their classes done. So they're either doing a work study or dual enrollment. They might be at the community college grabbing some credits. So if you're transferring those credits to a college, is that going to be an advantage on an application? Could it help improve that? Could it hurt that, seeing that you might be coming in as a halfway sophomore to a university? Talk about that with having community college credits taken during your senior year and how that can go on your application.
Yeah. So like doing, Jamie, like dual enrollment classes, they're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that helps, right? And especially if those credits will transfer over, right? Not every school will accept every credit that you've taken, especially if it's dual enrollment, if it's out of state, right? So if you are trying to transfer all of your credits to an out of state private school, right, they may not take everything, but I've had schools where they took all of the credit, right? So yeah, senior year, you still want to take those challenging courses too, and that helps because on your Common App or in your applications, they ask what classes are you taking senior year, right? And you have to list that. And that's important too because some schools will say, we're wanting a mid-year report, right? So we're wanting to see your first semester senior year grades. So if you're taking that dual enrollment, still challenging yourself, that helps. But if you're wanting to make sure all of your credits transfer too, you want to be intentional on your college list. Like, hey, like for Texas, for instance, like if I'm going to take 5 or 6 classes at this community college, will it transfer over and will I get this credit at this Texas school that I'm going to be attending, right? So really doing research there, but it doesn't hurt. But with senioritis, it's real. And I always tell seniors too, when you get accepted to your school, just say if you find out in the fall that you got accepted into your top choice, that acceptance letter is pending on your final transcript. When you're submitting your Common App and before you submit, you're checking off those boxes. I always have students read every box because one box says, if you get admitted, it's pending, right? So they are going to look at that final transcript and they are going to be expecting to see grades that were similar to the ones that were already on your transcript when they accepted you, right? So making sure that you're not just taking all easy classes, right? Especially if you're wanting to apply to a highly selective school, because they're going to be looking at those senior classes, but having those grades up until the final, until the end, because that acceptance letter is pending on your final senior transcript.
Great. A couple more questions as we're coming to an end. I have a few questions about AP classes. There's a lot of pressure to take AP classes. You should take classes. You should challenge yourself. We talked about that today. Some high schools don't offer as many options of AP classes, or they have to wait until their junior year in order for that to be an opportunity. as well as transferring to other schools where, AP classes might differ. How important is that, and how do you navigate the opportunities you have with AP classes as far as your application process?
Rosie, you want to start?
Sure. AP classes are very unique because not only can you challenge your academic course rigor during high school and it'll allow you to build a stronger GPA, but it also allows you to take the AP exam, and depending on the score you receive, you can cross-reference with your top universities and see if they will accept that score and transfer the credit. So it's similar to dual enrollment and IB. It's an opportunity to go into university with a few credits on your college transcript. The one thing that's really important about which AP course to choose is one that aligns with, and I think Rhonda touched on this earlier, with engineering and STEM fields, which AP courses will best align and help you with those credits, and for your college application process. Students who want to go into health-related fields, AP Bio, AP Psychology, courses that give you a glimpse of what the college course rigor is like, and gives you a deeper dive into that major you want to pursue in college. I hope that kind of touched on that
Sure.
question.
What should you do if you don't know what you want to major in?
Good question. I would say talk with your counselor, right? Talk with your counselor. Our counselors help with not just selecting your classes, but if you have any questions on possible interests or career, see what platform your school uses, right? Some examples are like Naviance, Zello, Score, School Links. There's a lot, but see if your school has a specific platform. Because I know for like Naviance and Zello, they have great like interest inventories, career interest inventory assessments that you can take, and your counselor can go through it with you. But I would say figure out at your school what resources that your school has that can help you find that out. Like, what are my interests? What should I start, looking for as far as if I don't know where to begin? Right. So starting at that school level, I always tell students too, like if there's maybe a few things that you're thinking about, go ahead and do a summer program. Right. So I had one student, she was like, I think I may be interested in nursing. I don't know what I want to do. She's found a summer program with nursing. She did it and she was like, I hated it. She was like, I don't think nursing is the best fit for me, but she was like, I'm so glad that I took it because I actually figured out that I really like business more, right? So just finding those opportunities where you can have those experiences. If it's shadowing someone, right? Summer programs are a great opportunity where students can really just get to explore different programs at different colleges within specific majors and specific career paths. But I would say first thing, figure out the resources that you have at your school because there's a lot of great resources that could be related to starting off to find that career or certain interest areas.
And how do you go about finding summer programs as well as international programs, Rosa, as well? You get all my international questions.
I
But
do. And
because you're so good at it.
It is. I love it. Bring it on. And just to kind of add to what Rhonda said and connect it to your question on how to find the right program, this is why I'm in the line of work that I do. Just because I am an immigrant, I didn't have the resources when I applied to college. So part of why I do this work is to really support the students find the resources. And I truly enjoy helping students identify their interests. Even if you don't know what major you want to pursue, that's completely okay. We utilize tools at Class 101 that help students discovering their passions, like the DISC profiler and the interest profilers. We start to understand, why are you interested in this major? STEM, arts, liberal arts, what have you. And from there, we dive deeper. How do you want to make that impact? Let's learn about your story. How do you want to spend your time and summer programs? And I try to build a strong network in my local community to share scholarship opportunities, summer programs, camps, leadership workshops with my students, because that's how I, want to serve my community.
Awesome. Um, Rhonda, what are some examples of leadership roles that colleges would look for? I know you guys talked about, be the vice president of a club, but there's only so many opportunities in a high school to lead a club and have that leadership. Any other ideas for leadership?
Yeah, so leadership in a club, sports too. So if you're a captain of, the cheer team or the baseball team, right? That is something that colleges will like to see. And remember, I talked about leadership doesn't have to have a specific title. So it can be you starting a nonprofit, starting an organization where you're impacting a lot of people, maybe starting that club at your school. Also, like I have some students where they have different podcasts with great followings, and then they have people on there that are speaking that's related to the major that they're wanting to do, right? Colleges love to see that, right? Because they're saying, wow, this student is passionate about XYZ because they have a podcast, and everything that's related to this podcast is what they're wanting to study. So really kind of think outside of the box as far as how can I be intentional if I'm not leading a specific club at my school. Even clubs outside different organizations. There's a lot of organizations that our students are involved in outside of their school that they can take leadership positions on too. Maybe even at their faith-based organization, they can be involved there in leadership positions. If they're in different nonprofits outside of school, is there any possible way to have a leadership position there? So there's so many things that students can do. You just gotta have to think outside of the box, right?
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to come down to one more question. And if we didn't get to your questions, please send us an email at this info@class101.com. We'll connect you with our people. There's a couple of Michigan specific ones and Texas specific ones in here we didn't get to. So I'll connect you directly with Rosa and Rhonda. But last question, how should I research what colleges I should apply to? How can I decide what college is the best fit for me based on statistics, reputations? Like, how do we find a college that we want to apply for?
Start early. Don't wait until senior year. No, but in all honesty, really capitalizing on your journey, challenge yourself with your academic course rigor, and get involved. Even if you try a few activities and you didn't like them, it will help you. And you get on campus visits and you didn't really like that small campus visit that has 5,000 undergraduate students. You want to be in a large state school. Maximizing all of these little journeys really will help you develop the right college list. There are many factors that go into that. But starting small and get on those campus visits, it's so important because that's where you can start exploring what's out there for you, what you like and what you don't like. And I tell my students, even if you don't like a campus visit, it'll help you further define what your interests and goals are.
And I would say, just to add one thing, like I always tell students, what are your college factors? What do you look for in a school, right? Do you want to be at a small school, right? Do you want to be at a large school? Do you want to stay in state? Do you want to stay out of state? Do you know what you want to major in? Do you know if you're wanting to play sports in college? So maybe starting off with writing a list of like, what do I like my ideal college? What does that look like, right? Writing those factors down. Big Future has a great site where you can put in the different factors that you list and it can narrow it down. Class 101, we have an amazing platform. It's called CPP, where students can find everything about every college, from the stats to the student body demographics to retention rate to graduation rate. But I would say finding out those factors and then looking at schools, because that's going to really help you find your best fit. So I'll give you an example. I went to Spelman for undergrad, and one student was like, I want to go to Spelman. I heard of Spelman. It's amazing. I love Spelman. And then when she researched it, She was like, man, it doesn't have my major. I really want to do sports. It doesn't have sports. I really want to be at a huge university. Spelman is small. So even though Spelman is amazing, yes, we know that it wasn't the best fit for that student. Right. And so, but she's glad she researched it because she didn't know those things. So I always tell students, you might find a school like, hey, I want to go there because I see it on TV. My mom or dad went there. But really seeing, what do I look for within a college? And does that match with the schools on my list?
That's right. The last thing you want to do is show up on campus that first week and realize you made a mistake because you didn't know it was that big, or you didn't know it was that
Yeah,
small, or you're too
yeah.
far from home.
Or too far
Yeah,
from home, yes. Hmm.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us again today. I know we didn't get to some of your questions. Pop us an email at info@class101.com. We will connect you with some of our advisors. They love answering these questions. It is their passion, and we really just want to be a part of your journey. So reach out to us. And if we didn't quite get to your questions, then we hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye.